fretboard navigation, the dream of picking up your guitar and playing across the entire neck, chords, melodies, and phrases, all linked together without getting lost. It's the goal for so many guitarists, but there's rarely a clear step-by-step system that actually gets you there. So if you've ever started a cool idea and then lost your bearings mid-solo, this video is going to fix that for you. I'll show you a simple system that builds your fretboard knowledge in layers, starting with things you already know, like basic chords and scales, and progressing to include everything you'll ever want to know. But before we dive into the system, it helps to understand why this has been such a struggle in the past. And the truth is, the guitar is just a difficult instrument to navigate. Each string is actually like its own keyboard starting from a different note. So playing the guitar is like a pianist using 6 different keyboards tuned differently, all stacked on top of each other. And then you get advice like, learn every scale in every key in every position. Learn every chord in every inversion in every position. Yes, that works for pianists, but that is extremely impractical for any guitar player. Following that advice on guitar is like landing in a brand new city and being told, okay, first step, memorize every single street name and store location, and then you'll understand the city. It sounds ridiculous, but that's the guitar advice you've been getting. However, that new city analogy brings us to step number 1 for fretboard navigation. We start with what I call fretboard landmarks. These are shapes and positions on the guitar that help to keep us oriented. And by the way, you can download the PDF below to follow along with this lesson easier. But our landmarks for navigation are basic bar chords. And to make it even simpler, for now, we're just going to pick one chord in one key, A minor. So your first step is just going to be to learn your A minor bar chords in 2 positions. If you don't know them yet, the first one is right over here with the low E string as the root note. And the second one is at fret 12 with the A string as the root note. That's it. 2 shapes, 2 locations. Let's go back to our new city analogy. If you work from home, there's really only 2 places you need to know right away. Number 1 is your apartment, where you live, sleep, and do your work. And that's our low E string A minor shape. And the second place you need to know is the grocery store, where you can get food, medicine, trash bags, all the essentials. That's your A string A minor. With just those 2 places, you can live. These 2 bar chords give you 2 reliable landmarks that divide the fretboard perfectly in half in a clean and efficient way with things you're going to play all the time. Bar chords. Now notice what I didn't say. I didn't say learn your intervals. I didn't say learn your inversions. All of that is going to come in due time, but you can't build those things on top of a foundation that doesn't exist yet. However, I also know a lot of you already have this first part down, and if that's you, you're ready to move on to step number 2, which is connecting landmarks. So once you've got your bar chords, you need a clear path between them. Not 10 different fancy routes or fancy modes, just one reliable, efficient, and safe road. And that path is the A minor pentatonic scale. Now, I know some of you are already rolling your eyes. Not the pentatonic scale again, I know that. But trust me, I've taught hundreds of students over the years, and almost all of them thought they didn't need this lesson until they worked through it this way. So here's the first key insight. As you work through learning your minor pentatonic boxes, you have to visually anchor them to the bar chords you already learned. So we start by going to our first bar chord, which is the low E string root note bar chord, A at fret 5, and we play it. But we have to immediately also think and visualize our box 1 minor pentatonic scale as connected to that bar chord. So we automatically know whenever we're playing a song and we play this A minor bar chord, we have those pentatonic scale notes available to us. But then we need to move up to get to our next chord. And to do so, we go through the pentatonic boxes. So here's box 2, box 3, and now we're at box 4. And as we play box 4, we also think about our A minor chord with the root note on the A string, this chord right here. And now our box 4. And then of course we can play box 5. And we want to be able to do that and move forward and backwards, connecting those 2 landmarks with our minor pentatonic scale. Oh, and by the way, here's a quick tip that many students over at Clarity Guitar Studio are always a bit shocked by. You may have noticed that every time I played the minor pentatonic scale, I started from the high strings and moved to the low strings. But I find that most guitar players do the opposite. They start from the low strings and move to the high string as they play the scale. But if you really think about it, 90% of the time when you go to improvise, you're not going to start up here. You're going to start down here. So as you work on learning your scales to play single note lines, it makes sense that you would start from the high strings and move to the low strings. And you'll notice that this little adjustment makes improvising way easier down the line. And if you've never tried it, you'll be shocked at how tricky it feels at first. Again, I've seen many students in the community find this simple change to be hugely beneficial. This is actually the perfect example of one of my core teaching philosophies. The best advice often seems like common sense once you've learned it. But until someone shows it to you, it really never occurs to you. That's the value of having a teacher. So if you ever learn something and then immediately go, oh yeah, that makes sense, that's usually a good sign that that advice is good for you at your current level. But if you start learning something and it immediately feels overwhelming, chances are it's not worth your time because you aren't ready for it, so you'll never use it and it won't actually stick. Now back to our minor pentatonic scale, you probably already know it has 5 notes and a regular minor scale has 7 notes. So your next question is probably, why not just navigate from the 7-note scale? We will do that eventually, but there are reasons why we don't jump straight into the 7-note scales. I'll give you a practical reason and a technical reason. First, the simple practical reason. Every single guitar player, whether they play blues, rock, or jazz, we all lean heavily on the pentatonic scale because it works. It fits well on the fretboard, it's easy to use, there's a ton of licks, and a strong, rich history of its use on the guitar. Skipping the pentatonic scale in favor of something more complicated is like refusing to drive on the highway just because everyone does it. Everyone drives on the highway because it's efficient, it works, and there's no reason to avoid it just because it's popular or common. But here's the more technical reason. Just because a song says it's in A minor doesn't mean you can play every single note from the A minor scale and have it sound good. Some notes from the A minor scale will naturally clash with an A minor chord, and we call these avoid notes. Notes that technically belong to the scale, but clash with the chord progression if you land on them or emphasize them at the wrong time. That means if you jump to using the 7-note scale, there's going to be a few more layers of theory to understand before you can use it effectively. We will get there eventually, but you don't want to start driving down back alleys in the dark before you know your safe route from your home to the grocery store and back. In fact, there are quite a few back alleys that make things a bit more complicated because when someone says A minor, they may mean A Aeolian, A Dorian, A Phrygian, A harmonic minor, A melodic minor. These are all A minor and they have a specific context and soft rules of use. So if you jump straight into trying to navigate the neck with 7-note scales, you're suddenly responsible for knowing which A minor scale applies, how it functions, and which notes to avoid. That's way too much for level 2. And that's why we start with the pentatonic scale. It's the only scale that doesn't have any bad notes. It's the only scale that works in every context in a minor key. And it also just happens to be the scale that has the most guitar licks and vocabulary. It's our perfect, safe route from the apartment to the supermarket and back. So learn each box of your minor pentatonic scale, and remember, anchor box 1 to your low E string bar chord, and anchor box 4 to your A string bar chord, and practice going between the two via the other pentatonic box shapes. And if you can start from your high strings and move to your low strings as you do it, that'll set you up even better down the line. The next step is to start learning your simple triad shapes and their inversions. Now, the great thing about these is that you already basically know most of them. They're not brand new material, they overlap with what you've already been playing. So if you take this first triad shape with the root note on the high E string right here, you'll see that fits perfectly with our box 1 pentatonic scale. And it also fits perfectly with our bar chord. It's literally right part of it. And if we jump to our third shape, which has the 5th on the high E string right here, you'll see that fits perfectly with our pentatonic scale box 4. And it also fits perfectly with our bar chord. And so we already know 2 of the 3 shapes. We only have to learn 1 more, and it's right here. And you'll see this fits perfectly between box 2 and box 3 of our minor pentatonic scale. And the really cool thing is that this shape is the perfect connector between our box 1 and our box 4. So we're in box 1 here. And then we have our connector shape with our 3rd on the high E string. And then we have our other big landmark right here. It's a great pit stop in between those 2 shapes. Back to our city analogy. Imagine you've been living in your apartment and driving back and forth to and from the supermarket, but now you find this great little gym/cafe, and it's right in between your 2 landmarks. Now you're not just driving back and forth, you have this other pit stop and you're learning more about everything as you go. And you also now have a new landmark. That's what these triads give you. And there are many other benefits as well. Number 1, you're simply expanding what you already have. You're reinforcing and layering new information on top of your familiar territory. Number 2, you're beginning to see how these triads connect back to the pentatonic scale. And that connection is going to become really powerful later on, especially when we start talking about improvisation and nailing the changes. And this new shape is also a new chord you can use when playing rhythm guitar. So learn these triad shapes, but remember, always anchor them to your bigger bar chords and your pentatonic scale. The anchoring part is the big insight. But now we're on to step 4. This is where we start to enhance our pentatonic scale with a couple of new notes. Depending on the genre of music you play, these can add a lot of color. The first note we're going to add is the major second. That gives us a 6-note scale. And the great thing about the major second is that it's another one of those notes that works great in just about every single context. It's completely safe. So you can land on it, you can lean on it, and it always sounds good for the most part. It's an easy win and another safe note to add to the mix. The second note we can explore is the flat 5, also known as the blue note. This one is different. It's not always safe to just sit on it, but it's incredibly powerful as a passing tone. This is where you get introduced to the idea of chromaticism, using a note that wants to move somewhere. In blues, rock, and jazz, that flat 5 is a classic. It creates tension that resolves beautifully when you lead it into a more stable note. Think about our city again. Our major second and our flat 5. This is like really starting to get to know the surrounding area near your landmarks. Around your apartment, you might find a coffee shop, maybe a park. Each one adds something new to your daily routine, but they're still close to your home. They're still fairly familiar. And then you learn the supermarket is actually around the corner from a much bigger shopping center. Now you're checking out the other stores in that plaza. Suddenly your map isn't just a straight road between 2 or 3 different landmarks. It's neighborhoods. It's places with new character. That's your major second and your blue note. So what we've got now is plenty of safe terrain to navigate, but each area is getting more interesting. And you can see how the fretboard is really starting to flesh out, just like a city that's becoming more alive the more time you spend in it. And I really want to drive home this idea of exploring a neighborhood. That is exactly the right way to practice these ideas. Go to your pentatonic scale and your boxes and just start to explore different areas, find different connections, find your major second, your blue note, connected to your triads. This is like walking around, window shopping, picking up a few menus to take home with you. Explore the area. The more you explore, the more depth you start to build. And then that brings us to step 5, which is essentially the final layer. This is where we take everything we've built so far and move into full 7-note scales. And this means we're no longer just driving the main safe route. This time we're navigating the entire city with full freedom. And here's the reality. When you explore an entire city, it's not always smooth. The streets aren't perfectly laid out. There are potholes, sketchy neighborhoods, back alleys. The guitar fretboard is exactly like that once you step into full scales. There are void notes. There are contexts where one skill works beautifully and another clashes. You can't just wander anywhere without thinking. You need to be aware and you need to practice good judgment. But if you built the layers we already went through, you're ready for this because you've got landmarks and a safe, efficient route you can always lean on. So if you're ever exploring something and you panic and you don't know exactly where you are, you get a little bit lost, you can just return to one of your pentatonic shapes or one of your triads. But here's the real beautiful part about all of this. Every time you get lost, and you find your way back to a triad or a pentatonic scale, you just created a new neural pathway in your brain, a deeper groove of your fretboard knowledge and comfort. You're no longer just surviving in the city, you're learning to live in it. You're confident enough to wander, to explore, to even take some risks, because even if you don't know where you are at every single moment, you know a bunch of safe spots you can go to if you need to. And this is the ultimate goal of fretboard navigation and playing music. Not just memorizing shapes, not just moving through scales, but being able to improvise, compose, and create anywhere on the neck with the same comfort you feel walking around your own neighborhood. But remember this, the only reason this works is because we didn't start here. Most players make the mistake of trying to begin with this full-scale mastery. That's like landing in a new city with no map, no landmarks, no safe routes, and telling yourself, I'm going to just memorize every single street in the city right now and wander around all types of neighborhoods having no idea where I am. It's very unrealistic to start with, and it's why players feel stuck when they try to learn this. And I know we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the exact 7-note scales. Honestly, that's a really huge topic, and there's a lot of debate about the best way to learn them, but I explained the best method in this video.